How to prepare for a military move. My name is Emilio, and I've been active duty for almost a decade now. And welcome to the Military Move channel. This is a channel where you're going to see every video covering everything you need to know about PCSing and moving in the military. This is one of the most stressful parts of being in the military, especially if you have family and kids, and I just want to be a resource that you're able to look into. Alright, so today we're going to be going over three main topics that you need to know about. The first one is going to be personal property, the second one is going to be your kids' education and schooling, and the third one is going to be your vehicles. All right, I'm going over these because these are going to be some of the heavy hitters when it comes to your actual move. These are going to be the topics that you're going to want to get your ducks in a row right before you actually go to your next base. And one thing I want to caveat with this is that you're actually able to get a power of attorney for someone else to take care of some of these things, whether it's your personal property and let's say you have a friend take care of the move or other things like that. But moving on to topic number one, your personal property. Again, this is going to be one of the biggest things to tackle during your actual PCS. And for that reason, you really want to prepare ahead of time. Not only do you want to start decluttering around your home, but you're also going to want to organize everything. You're going to have three specific moves when it comes to your personal property. So you're going to have an unaccompanied baggage, a household goods, and the actual stuff that you're going to take whether you're driving or flying. So talk it over with your spouse or just yourself and make sure that you decide which is going to go in which move. Alright, so at the beginning of your personal property move, you're normally going to have a moving agent that's going to contact you weeks in advance, and they're going to actually plan all that stuff out for you. They're usually going to come over to your home, inspect all of your stuff, just look it over really roughly, and see the layout of where your apartment or home is. Just so when the movers come, they have a good understanding of how they're going to be able to move your stuff. And this is also a great time to ask any questions about your move, whether you don't know if you can take certain things, if it's anything as far as dates or anything like that. When it comes to your personal property stuff, these moving agents are usually going to be the SMEs, the subject matter experts when it comes to these things. So please ask now before the date comes and they actually start picking your stuff up. And one thing I want to emphasize on, especially if they don't tell you, is that you don't need to pack your stuff and they don't want you to pack your items. The moving companies are usually going to come in with all their packing materials and they have a system to it. They're going to pack your stuff in a certain order and in this particular manner, and they're also going to label all that stuff. So if you jump the gun and start packing some of your things, they're actually probably going to unpack that stuff, re-verify what you're actually shipping out. So like I've been told, just leave it to the experts and let them do it. The only thing that you really want to do ahead of time is just have your stuff clean. You know, if it's things like your coffee table, the clothes that you have, or even things like your linen, make sure all that stuff is clean. Having your stuff clean is going to be easier to tell if there was any damage to it once it was transported. But also, if some of your stuff is dirty, it might cause mold to grow during the actual move. Now, I've never heard of personal property being stored in air-conditioned area because normally it's just sitting in warehouses, and depending on the time of year that you're in, it's just going to be baking in a warehouse. And most of the time, all that stuff is wrapped up and packaged up, so that's just a perfect storm for mold to grow. And I'm going to be dropping a link in the description also that's going to have information on mold growth and how you can actually get compensated if you do face that. But real quick on that, if you do receive some of your stuff with mold, you don't want to really open it up and leave it at your residence. Normally, just let them know, let the packers know, and they'll repack that stuff up and take it back to the warehouse, and then you'll get compensated for that as well. And also, another thing I want to emphasize in is that you're going to be signing so many documents during your PCS, and especially with your personal property stuff. There's going to be moments where you're handed documents that you don't even know what they say, but they're essentially going to be asking you to sign it. And this is a point to not sign it. You know, if you don't understand something, don't do it. Ask questions first, understanding, and then make sure you know what you're signing for. And moving on to the actual day that the movers are going to come and pick your stuff up, it's just really important to prepare for the little things. Make sure you put your pets away and you kind of just get out of the way of the movers. Like I mentioned, these guys got this stuff down to a system, and they're there to tear your stuff down, pack it up, and get it out of there. Now, also, depending on the time of year, I like to have some water for these guys, and sometimes even some pizza. Remember, these guys are packing up all your stuff and loading it out, and sometimes they even got to go up, down, and flights of stairs. Alright, part 2, your kids' education and schools. This might not apply to you, but for some, it's a super important topic, especially if you have kids that are in those graduating years in high school. And the military offers some awesome programs. And before you actually start your move, you want to reach out to a school liaison. Now, these are folks that are going to be at your next base and they're experts when it comes to your kids' education. They're going to be able to tell you the programs, activities, and camps that they offer at your next base. But that's really just covering the surface of what they're able to do. They can get with you specifically and your kids that are in high school or other schools and just develop a plan as well. If your kid might be struggling in a certain area or a certain type of program, that's something that you can bring up to the school liaisons and they'll be able to get you on the right path for your kid. And they're also tremendous support when it comes to being homeschooled too. And ultimately, just reach out to these folks as much as you can. They want to give you all the resources that they can to provide for yourself and for your kids' education too. All this moving stuff is stressful, not only for us, but for your kids as well. And especially when it comes to your school, they have to, find new friends, they have to transfer all their credits. So they might just be in the dark as much as you are. It really helps if you have someone that's able to develop a plan for you and them. All right, the last part, your vehicles. Now, I know this is a hot topic, especially if you're going to Oconus or you're coming from Oconus. But essentially, you're allowed to move one car when it comes to coming from Oconus or two going. But essentially, you're allowed to travel one vehicle if you're coming from overseas or you're going there. Now, that doesn't mean you're able to come out of pocket if you want to move your car within the states or you want to pay for an extra vehicle when it comes to overseas shipping. And normally with this shipment, you're going to have to file a POV voucher. This is normally a 1351-2. Here's an image of it real quick and all the info that you're going to need. But I'm also going to link it below just so you get an actual PDF of it. But this is basically your run-of-the-mill travel voucher with all the info that you're going to need for specifically that POV. And also, this is kind of a nuisance, especially when you start going to your next base where you're just there with your family and you essentially have no car sometimes when you start wanting to drive around and get around base and even off base. And you just have to ask, your coworkers or someone else for a car. When it comes down to that, your rental cars are not going to be reimbursable. It's just difficult, especially when you're at a new base and you don't really know anyone. My wife and I actually rented our own car and just wanted to pay out of pocket for that because we had recently purchased a home and we just wanted to check it out and start driving around in the neighborhood. And we just didn't really want to inconvenience the people that we knew there. We didn't really know them, so it was just hard on that end as well. And that's just something that we just decided to eat the cost on, and it was worth it for us, really. But more on that, we did plan ahead before we got to our next base and just started, eyeing out some cars that we liked and starting to make the move on the purchase for that. We did have to go through getting our driver's license and all that because we came from overseas. Try to have your ducks in a row, especially when it comes to that stuff. But coming back to shipping your vehicles when it comes to overseas and all that stuff, you want to make sure that not only your interior and all that stuff is clean, because again, that mold, you don't want that mold to get you. Also, the outside of it and the undercarriage and things like that. You don't want your oil drip pan just freaking gushing oil or any fluids of really anything like that because they're going to look at that stuff and they're going to deny your car. You just really want it as clean as you can inside and out. And before you do any of that, before you send it off to get it stored, which give me a second, I'm going to talk more on that, or if you're going to send it overseas, you want to make sure you take care of all the recalls and they're going to deny you if you have important recalls that you haven't taken care of. So make sure you schedule all that stuff with the dealership ahead of time so you can ship your vehicles. And another crucial thing, make sure you have a spare set of keys. That's also another requirement that they're going to ask for you. And when it comes down to actually turning in your vehicles, you're going to want a quarter tank of gas, no more. So if you got to do a few laps around the parking lot to make sure you get it down to that quarter tank, then do so. And on the flip side of that coin, I know a lot of people like to store their vehicles. I would not do it. I don't see the benefit of that. Especially if you're going overseas, you're just going to have that car just sitting there collecting dust, honestly degrading and depreciating in value. But if that's your choice, there's definitely a process to it. So PCS My POV is an awesome website that I'm going to link down below, but they essentially have all that process down to a system. But again, with that system, there's going to be a lot of guidelines that you're going to have to follow. The same thing as if you're shipping your car to overseas. And normally they're going to set your car up for that long-term care, make sure it's getting taken care of and the maintenance is getting done on it and all that good stuff. That way, when you get back from your tour, your car is going to be ready for you and it's going to be well kept. All right, again, my name is Emilio. I'm a local realtor out here in Tucson, Arizona, Davis Mountain Air Force Base. And if you're looking to buy or sell in the area, reach out to me. My phone number is 520-820-1948. Or if you're PCSing to another state or base and you want a real estate agent in that area that knows how to help military families like you, then reach out to me and I can connect you with someone. Or click my document down below, fill it out, tell me where you're going, and I'll connect you with someone.